Jackie Well, scientist, and he's going to talk about a very interesting topic today, which I think we're all very in tune with in today's, more than ever. We're all seeking and searching for information in this area because it's something that we are very aware of that is critical. It's really critical for us to understand for our families as we go forward. So welcome, Dr. Ahrens. Welcome back.
Thank you. Very glad to be here. Thank you very much. You know,
so I'll hand.
We're trying to make this more and more information available to people throughout the world, and not focus specifically on products, but general information about health. And that's what we're doing today. We're going to start out by talking about the immune system.
Well, without further ado, I'm just going to let you educate us, because I know that you have an abundance of knowledge. I've been listening to you for 5 years now, and I know Dr. Ron Bosema Sr. has been doing the same, and there's a few others of us as well that have been doing that, and we continue to keep learning from you. There is one thing that I will ask of people, Dr. Ahrens, before we go forward, and this is for compliance for those that are on this call. Please do not record this yourself. We ask that you do not record it, that you use the recording that we provide for you. We need to ensure that this stays compliant. So for those that are recording it themselves live, we respectfully ask you if you can wait until it comes out and we provide the recording for you. But thank you for understanding, and I'll hand that over to you, Dr. Ahrens.
Well, you know, a lot of us on this call know an awful lot about the immune system. Some of us, though, don't. And so I thought we would go over some basics, lay the groundwork for future talks, and maybe, you know, they can clear up a few misconceptions because it's a little confusing to people. But the immune system and the inflammatory cascade, you know, we're going to talk about how they interconnect and what's really going on. The immune system is actually part of healing. You get attacked by something and your body has several defenses, and it has an army of soldiers to take care of itself. It's quite amazing. But it's also not just attack from microbes and bacteria and viruses, but actually things like splinters and poisons. This is actually all the immune system. And we have divided, scientists, healthcare professionals have divided it up into 3 main areas, so we would just make it easy to talk about. It is all one system, but we want to talk about 3 different areas. One of them that starts out is basically a barrier. That is a very important part of the immune system. Barrier. This could be physical, like the physical aspect of your skin. It's also chemical. There are chemicals that are in your skin that are not associated with any particular cells, but they float in and around your skin, and also the pH of your skin. Now, not just this skin, but the skin that goes all the way inside you. That's the epithelial layer, and it continues all through your gut and comes out the other end. You know, we're kind of like just a long tube, but that's all a barrier. And inside your nose, this is all basically a mechanical system. It includes the mucus that's inside your lungs and inside your nose, constantly rejuvenating itself and pushing things out. Inside your lungs, there are cells that are washing like ocean waves out of your lungs and up into your throat. And that's why you cough. When you get something in there down inside, it works its way up. That's probably the worst part about someone who smokes, is that it destroys those little finger cells in there so that you can no longer get that flood of cells and mucus out of your body. And that's what the smoker's cough basically is. It's liquid in your lungs that can't get out. So that's a barrier. It's not composed of cells or agents of any type. It's just a physical barrier. And this actually prevents most of us from getting sick and being attacked. And when some organism invades that, or we're cut, go through that physical barrier, then we move into the second part, which is the innate system. Innate. And that means you came with it from birth. While you're born, innate, that means to be birthed. So you got it from birth. When you were born, you had an innate system. And this is actually composed of a lot of cells. I mean, there's all types, monocytes and basophils and dendritic cells and macrophages, and it's all pus. Yeah, that white yellow stuff, pus, is actually composed of about a dozen different cell types. And each one of these have a different role to play. Each one of them recognize different attacks, but they're generic attacks. It's not real specific that they're focused on any particular virus or bacteria. These are just general attacks that, for instance, they're cells, they're floating around through your body, and when you get cut, those cut cells release a chemical into your bloodstream, and then those cells kind of go back with their own chemical signals and tell your body, come on, come with me, there's something going on here, we got a cut, we got a break, we got a bruise, something's going on here. So they all show up at this site, and they know it's there because your broken cells are flooding into the bloodstream, and so they know where to go. It's a remarkable system. And then some of those cells I mentioned start chewing up damaged tissue, and other cells start laying down this like rebar and concrete so that other cells can come in there and lay on top of it. Stem cells are activated, and then your wound is healed, or if it's some poison, it's washed away or it's diluted. But this has nothing to do with viruses or bacteria. This is all your innate system. You're born with it. Everybody has it. This is what starts out healing the cuts when you've gotten past the physical barrier, and now you're actually got inside the body. Could be a bee sting. It could be a piece of pollen. And your body just says, this is not normal. I don't recognize this as normal. So then it starts sending out the signals, and all these basophils and macrophages come around and they eat up what they need to eat. A macrophage actually means big eater. And as far as weight in your body, it's not just in your bloodstream. These cells are all in between other cells, and they're constantly moving in and out, looking around. I can use that human word. They're just waiting for chemical signals, and they will eat up whatever is there. And, if you got them all together at one time, got them into a ball, they would be the same weight and mass as your brain. That's how many of these are in your body. And you go to the doctor, and he or she does a blood test, and they see, well, how many of these cells do you have in your bloodstream? And they've got a list of them, just like I said, the basophils and leukocytes and macrophages, and then dendritic cells. And there should be, for people that do not have infections, they should have a normal level of these cells. If they're too low, then that means your immune system is not producing enough. Maybe there's something going on with your spleen or your blood, your bone marrow. If they're too high, it means you've got an infection somewhere, because your body is pumping these little soldiers out to go to war. So that's why those are very important. And each one of those cells have a different job. And so if you know what those jobs are, you can look at a blood chemistry, a blood panel, and you can see what's going on in the body and what the body is trying to attack. So that is the innate system. That is, you're born with it. Babies have it from birth. And also, of course, they have skin, so they have the barrier, the physical barrier, and then they have the innate system. So I hope everybody understands that. Everybody has a innate system. It comes with all kinds of cells that are ready to attack any type of an attacker and insult. Could be a cut, could be poison, but that's an automatic system. And this does the great a great job for 90% of any issues you will have. But now we have the what people mostly think of when they say immune system, immunity. And this is the one that you acquired. It's actually called the acquired system or the adaptive system. It's an acquired system. You get it as you grow older, as you are exposed to more diseases and germs. This system adapts to the problems that you have. It adapts, so it's called an adaptive system, but you also don't have it at birth, so it's called an acquired system. This is two words for the same thing. Now, there's not a lot of cells in this adaptive system. There's only two main types of cells. It's the beta leukocytes and the T leukocytes. And here we are, leuko again. So that means white blood cells. This is still, if you could look at them, they look like they're pus. Again, pus. And if you've got pus somewhere, you've got some kind of an infection going on. If you could see it, you've got an infection going on. And then these two, the beta leukocytes and the T leukocytes. Well, I just lied to you, because now the T leukocytes are made up of two different cell types themselves. We've got helper cells, and we've got the killer cells. That's like, you know, the attack of the killer tomatoes. They got the killer cells. They're the guys with the machine guns waiting in the back. And then we got the helper cells. Now, these helper cells, they actually are called that because they help out every other cell in your body that's trying to go at war. Even back in the innate system, some of the jobs of those cells are helped by this helper system. And when you produce antibodies, which we'll talk about in just a moment, antibodies coming from the beta leukocytes, the B leukocytes, those helper cells help that job get done. Well, they are extremely important. In fact, this is the #1 issue with AIDS. AIDS attacks the helper cells, and people that have AIDS don't have very many helper cells. So even though they don't do the main job, they don't produce antibodies, they help the rest of your immune system, helper cells. So let's remember now these killer cells, attack of the killer tomato cells. I just always imagine these things, you know, in trench coats. Well, okay, just show us what to do. We're out there. Well, that's what they do. They'll kill. So you've got antibodies that point out the bad guys, and those killer cells do a job. You know, they take out a contract on them. And so you got helper cells and you've got the killer cells. Now, all those other cells I mentioned before, they're also killer cells, but these guys really do the job. They kill. And then you've got those others, the beta leukocytes, the B leukocytes. This is where antibodies come from. Let's talk about, and this is where they're stored. So let's talk about how that works. So you've got a piece of something. It could be a piece of a virus. It could be a piece of a bacteria, or it could be the whole thing. And you've got these other cells flowing around in your body, including these helper cells and some of those others I mentioned, like the macrophages. They've recognized that something doesn't belong here. Something doesn't belong here. It goes and tells those beta leukocytes, it says, you need to recognize it. We're going to kick ass on this thing, on this invader, but you need to recognize it. Because then you can stand by and you'll be ready to recognize it quicker next time it happens. So you go through a disease, you get a cold, you get the flu, you get COVID or whatever you get, attack a hay fever, your body beats those things up, but it forms a memory. And this is what antibodies are. And there are millions and millions of organisms that can attack you. Millions. There's thousands of influenza, flu, and colds. Each one of them is a little different. As you very well know right now, there's dozens of problems with the COVID. It's not just one, it's several variations. And your body, every time it finds something that's should not be there, it goes out and attacks, and hopefully it wins the war, but it tells those beta cells at the same time, remember this. And so it actually forms a chemical memory of that attacker, where it will recognize chemically, and if it ever comes again. And you don't have to wait for all those white blood cells to build up and then start attacking, because it's standing at the gate, so to speak, checking everybody out. It's got a memory, and as soon as it sees that there is a problem, hey, I recognize that thing. It was in here last month, and it causes trouble. Those beta leukocytes open up and release these memory pieces called antibodies. They cling onto the invader, and it's rapidly and readily recognizable by all those other white blood cells I told you about. They don't have to go around and circulate and go back to the source and say, well, I recognize something that didn't belong here, and then tell your body to start making new killer cells. No, those antibodies actually amplify the signal, so they recognize that invader because he was here last month or last year or whenever, and they amplify the signal, so all those white blood cells burst out of the stockade and jump on the invader. And if you looked at this on a time graph, if you did not ever have a certain virus, it's just a war, and you go, the virus multiplies in your body more and more and more and more, and then also your white blood cells multiply, and hopefully they catch up and get ahead of those attackers, and then it goes back down. Well, when you've got antibodies in there, it's a whole lot different story. You get a virus that your body's already seen before, and those antibodies recognize it immediately, and then they amplify the signal. It goes a little different. It just goes up a little bit and then goes down, up a little bit, and then just flat. Instead of spiking up like that and then hopefully you win, no, it just goes up a little and then out. Now, people have said, well, how can you have an antibody recognize every type of invader? Well, there are trillions of these, trillions. They're even larger than the US deficit. That's how much big they are. They're larger than the US deficit. Trillions, quadrillions of these already have been made, and they're so clever. It looks like a little T, and it's a little chain, a loop of chemicals, and it kind of is like knitting. It's almost like knitting, and there are all these little loops, and it can knit, and then it pulls in another one. It knit, pulls another one in, and by putting these combinations together, with only out of a few chemicals, it can organize these signals into millions, trillions of antibodies, trillions. And if everything works right, they're there for the rest of your life, the rest of your life. If that bad man shows up again, they're ready just like that in a split second. Now, you might be sick for other reasons, and you don't make as many cells as we age, and so your immune system slows down and needs some more support. But as far as those antibodies ready to go, they're there as long as you're alive. So that is where this is what we call adaptive, because it's not generic. It recognizes an attacker and it adapts to that attacker, and it's ready for them the next time, ready for the next time. Now, I hope that then you know these three parts, just a physical barrier, and then the next is the one you got from birth, native, think of nativity scene. Think of the nativity scene. Native, that's what it means, birth. So you have one innate, since birth, and then you have the one that's adaptive that I just explained. Trillions right now in your body. They're ready to go from some virus that you saw back when maybe you were 2 years old. And there is a period there, by the way, that you don't have an adaptive system. And this is why something like mother's milk was very good, because she can pass antibodies on to you. before you make yourself any. So think about that. That's one of the reasons I do go for mother's milk rather than formula. Sometimes you have to use it, but you don't get any immune response. So she can pass her antibodies along. So if she had a certain cold, especially while she was carrying you, and she overcame that cold, now the baby can have it, but it's very temporary. It's not their own antibodies. It just floats around in the stream. It doesn't get put into the beta cells like I just told you. So it's temporary. But then after a couple of years, and amazingly, at the time you usually stop breastfeeding, the baby's immune system is all ready to go and starts this lifelong process. And so, but here you are, 92 years old, you could come across a virus that your body saw 90 years ago and it's still ready to go. It is just incredibly amazing, incredibly amazing. So let's talk about briefly, how much time do we have left here? I don't want to go over.
Do you know what? I think everybody is glued to their seat. So if you want to talk for another 5 minutes, we'll let you.
Okay. I did want to mention things like COVID. I'm not going to say pro or con against anybody taking an inoculation, but I want to talk about how this happens. Where do inoculations fit into this whole deal? Well, one of the ways is if you could somehow take pieces of a virus or anything else, bacteria. We usually don't do this for bacteria because bacteria are alive, they're breathing, and there's lots of poisons that'll kill them. And that's what we call them, antibiotics. We don't need an inoculation for bacteria because we can simply kill them with poisons. It works very, very well. And making these viral inoculations is real expensive and time consuming. So if we can kill it with poison, that's what we do. And also fungus, you know, things like that in your toe, we can kill that with poison. But things we can't, virus is not alive. It is total, it never was alive. So it's not even dead. It's just a bunch of chemicals together that automatically reproduce. And that's what they're trying to do, is just reproduce. It's kind of like a machine. They have no brain. They have no oxidation system. They're just like little tinker toys put together. They don't have a brain at all, but they got all kind of structures on them. And so what we used to do, we took some of these viruses that were live and we cook them or figure out how to burn up half of them so that they were weakened. They were weakened, but they were still functional. And we take those weakened viruses and inject them into people. Weakened viruses, but still totally functional. And we inject them into people. And since they were weakened, they didn't reproduce very easily. And then our body made antibodies for it. So then since it was weak, our body was able to knock those viruses out. We overcame it, and now we got all antibodies because we could recognize it. Just because it's weak and it's still, we recognize the antibodies recognize it, and now they're ready for next time. Well, unfortunately, those things often cause disease. And I think many of you have heard back when we were very successful in getting rid of polio through this system, mothers caught the polio virus actually out of their baby's diapers. And it may have been weak and the baby got the shot and then the mother gets it and the virus still works. It still is functional and can cause disease. So this was not a really great way to do it. Then the next thing we started to do was find out how to kind of dissolve these viruses and take little pieces of them so they were totally inactivated. But there were little pieces of them, like the outside or the little legs or whatever. They're not bugs, but they have things that look like legs. And you know, a lot of them look like the moon lander when they went to the moon, that little thing that came down on the moon and then later blasted off. A lot of them look just like that moon lander. And they land on your cell just like that. And they have a way to burrow into your cell. They're not even alive. It's just a total machine, just like the moon lander. So they take some little piece like the little leg or something and take those and reproduce them and then inject those into your body. That works very well. And your body sees that little piece and it says it doesn't belong here. and it easily defeats it because it's not a working virus. It doesn't cause a disease. It's just a little piece, and it gets rid of it, and you've got antibodies. So then if the real virus comes by in the future, the immediately antibodies recognize it because they just worked with a piece of it, you know, last year or whenever. So they're ready to go. But man, I'm telling you, reproducing this is very difficult. How do you reproduce a little part of a virus so you can inject it into somebody? And it's very expensive. Well, this is how we did it. It's actually like we're doing right now with COVID. So how can a virus cause you to be sick and reproduce and it's not even alive? Well, as a mechanical thing, if you could imagine that little moon lander landing on your cell, and chemically it dissolves the membrane and it empties its insides into your cell. What's in there? RNA, ribonucleic acid. It's genetic material. It empties its own genetic material into you, and it causes your body to read that genetic material and make copies of itself. So your body produces the whole virus. The virus doesn't do anything. It hijacks your system. This is absolutely genetic modification from the virus on you. You become a GMO. That is true. Your body then starts making the virus. It's not like a virus goes in your cell and lays eggs, and then the eggs grow up and hatch and explode. No, that virus dumps its DNA, its RNA into your body and causes your own genes to make the virus. And it's amazing. So, and then it bursts out of your cells and goes about and goes on to another host. That's how a virus survives. Well, some people said, you know, why don't we do something different? Why don't we take one of those pieces of that messenger RNA, it's called mRNA. We'll take a piece of that and we can put that in the cell, but it will not enter the genome of the human. That's important. It does not go into your DNA. It goes out and immediately goes to that little part of your cell that makes a protein. Bypasses your DNA, does not infiltrate into your DNA, does not get into the reproductive machinery. The only thing it does is it goes to a little thing called RNA polymerase. It's not in the nucleus of your cell. It stays away from your DNA. It's a little piece of material that tells that polymerase to make a protein. This protein is the one that is on the COVID. The things that are sticking out all over that round ball, those are little pieces of protein. So what you're making is little pieces. But I want to repeat that. That mRNA that's in the shot does not go into your DNA. Now, if it was the virus absolutely goes into your DNA and it takes over your whole machinery and starts making copies of itself. But in this case, they have ingeniously just taken a little piece of the mRNA that they got off of a virus. It's not a piece of the virus. It has no possibility of causing infection. And it goes right to the polymerase, and it makes up that protein. Wham! The antibodies show up and say, you don't belong here. Jump on it and make a bunch of antibodies that go back and lurk in the beta cell, the beta leukocytes. That's how it works. This is actually one of the most safest vaccines I've ever heard of. It's not a piece of a virus. It's not a denatured virus. It's not a weakened virus. It's not a so-called live virus. It's actually just the message for the virus, and it never goes into your nuclear material, and it's just consumed right away. By the way, what happens to it? Well, your cells easily handle it, just like any other piece of foreign protein that gets into your body, like from a bee sting. That's made out of protein. Well, what about It's so new technology. No, it's not new technology. I was working with this stuff around 15 years ago. This is not new technology. When the SARS came out and the Ebola, we were already using this technology. It is a long time it's been worked on because it looks so promising. It's called mRNA technology, and we looked at it. It got discovered 15 years ago, and about 10 years ago, it really took off. And we took some of that stuff with our own Ebola, and another company put them together to make one of the inoculations that they used. So it's an older, quite for science, that's an old technology. The only thing that's new is the new getting the mRNA from the COVID. That's okay, there's COVID, let's get it. But COVID is a SARS, people. It's just one of the SARS viruses. So, and we've done this for SARS viruses for over a decade. Now, if you don't like to have inoculation, that is totally fine. I just want to know you to know how it works. I think one of the problems is that the solutions that they put some of this in, that people get sick from that. That's also a lot of the problem with infant inoculations. The stuff that's in there to keep the inoculation fresh, that's what you might have an allergic reaction to, not the part of the inoculation itself. So that's how it works. It's part of your adaptive system. It's the same thing as if you go out and got a natural cold, got a virus up your nose, your virus says, hey, you don't belong here, and it kills it, and at the same time makes antibodies, which are ready next time to have that supersonic attack. Now we take a little, it's even better. We take a little piece of the message RNA, put it inside your body. It does not go into your genes. It is not modifying anything to do with you. It just goes right on that little manufacturing site inside your cell, and it makes the protein that looks identical to it, but there's no virus with it. There's nothing else there. It's just the protein, the little spike. And now your body says, oh, let's make some antibodies for that because we don't recognize it. So that's ready to go when you do get not just COVID, but anything you get an inoculation for. That's how it works. So that's the story. I'm sticking to it.
Well, it's a very good story. And we do have a question for you. Lorena's just asked Dr. Ahrens, could you please actually share, in your opinion, are all vaccines equally as safe or the same? I'm not quite sure how to actually ask you this. So can you respond to that, please?
No, they're not all as safe. And the first reason is they have all of them have a lot of the liquid part of the vaccine. It could be some type of sterilant or something to keep the vaccine fresh. You know, it's like a solution. It could not just salt, but different pH, different chemicals in it. I think people can have allergic reactions to those. In fact, when you get these vaccines lately, they say, are you allergic to any of these things? And they'll give you a list because they're in that vaccine. Some of them are more pure than others. Number two, I think live vaccines, and by that, I don't mean they are alive. When we say live vaccine, we mean a vaccine that is able to cause a disease. Those are very dangerous. Live vaccines are dangerous. They can give you the disease themselves. Happens with polio. Then there's also the attenuated, or the ones that are impaired. Those are semi-dangerous. I personally think that the ones that use this latest technology here are quite safe. They don't seem to have any problem, except some people are allergic to the liquid part of that vaccine that's trying to keep everything sterile and be a fluid medium for the vaccine. But you can't, message RNA, it can't make a disease. There's just no way possible. It's just a little protein. It doesn't do anything. So it can never lead to a disease. You have fever and those kind of things because you were allergic to something else in that vaccine. I hope that answered the question.
It most certainly did. And Dr. Ahrens, I just want to add to it, just for everybody that's on this call, that this actually is your opinion. And when we start talking about COVID, that we need to be very mindful. If I can, I've written this down so that I do not forget that. Please try to share this recording rather than try and explain any of this information to yourself, to others, so that you are staying compliant. Because Dr. Ahrens is a scientist. He's got a lot of years behind him, as you're all aware. So the knowledge that he brings forward to us, he has the right to be able to do that. And we do not, most of us do not. So if I can suggest to you to stay compliant, just share this information, because I could not explain it any better than this man. I wouldn't even try. So I would please humbly ask all of you to think about doing the same, because COVID is a really touchy subject when we talk about compliance, and when we start talking about sharing products, that becomes a very hot area. So this little thing that I've got here, where we're pushing back our immune system, if I can suggest to you, I think Dr. Ahrens may agree with me. It's through healthy eating, it's through healthy exercise, it's through getting enough sleep that we can try and support our immune system to push back all of these things in regards to what's trying to attack our body, or trying to ignite something within our body that wants to try and make us, well, not try to want to make us sick, that we're exposed to. So try and eat healthy, regular exercise, get regular sleep. Of course, there are things that you can assist and support your body with, but just try and stay compliant. So, and I did have just as a little bit of light humor. I was listening to all of the words that you were explaining, and very, very clearly, Dr. Ahrens, there are a lot of things in there about kids' toys that you mentioned, which was quite interesting when we talk about how we explain things and how we relate to things, and because it really is basic. Not taking anything away from you, because you have years and years of research and a lot of hours underneath you that give you the credibility. But it is quite simple when you break it all down to layman terms of how we can share this information. So I really thank you. I want to ask you if there's anything else you'd like to finish up with, Dr. Ahrens, before we finish this recording.
Well, you touched on the diet, exercise, and sleep, and that is the greatest thing you can ever do for your body, for your mind. And in this case, those three things are help all those cells that I mentioned to be produced. And the other thing is those killer cells and those helper cells, they're actually a source of TNF alpha. And you people have heard me talk about TNF alpha and the cascade, the inflammatory cascade. They come out of those cells, and when they're activated automatically, the production of TNF alpha and this cascade, they're automatically show up to direct what those cells do. They direct it chemically, and they also tell what resources are being needed. They actually, you can think of it this way, they observe the battle, see who's winning, and they summon further troops. Unfortunately, when the job is done, they need to go back home, and flavonoids are in your diet are what regulate that. Without the flavonoids in your diet, and I've called this before, flavonoid deficiency syndrome, one of the things that happens is this a wonderful immune system gets unregulated, and then you end up with problems like psoriasis, which is an autoimmune disease. So good diet. And how do you get flavonoids? Eat all that dark stuff, man. Dark greens, dark purple. The darker, the better. You know, and the caffeine, coffee, there's good for you. That helps your body out, helps your immune system. Good diet, dark vegetables, dark fruits, especially the peels. So diet, exercise, good sleep.
Okay, well, I think that you've really given us a lot of information for all of us to go away with, and we're able to share. And I thank you, Dr. Ahrens, for being here, and we welcome you back with open arms, and we're happy to see you back. And next week, I know, to follow up on where we're heading with it, we are heading into with Dr. Tim Harrigan, and he's going to come on board as Dr. Ahrens' guest. And they're going to be talking about gut health and digestion. So that's going to be a call you will not want to miss. And I just want to thank each and every one of you. But Dr. Ahrens, while you're here, I really do want to put out a special thank you to Dr. Ron Bosima Sr., because In your absence, I could not have been able to do these calls without his support. And I want to thank also Kathy Gregory, and we've had other people that have come on board and have supported these calls each week. And we could not do it without each and every one of you by turning up. So I'm very grateful. I believe Dr. Ahrens is also, but Dr. Ron Bosima Senior, thank you so much.
Thank you.
You cannot run away because I still want you around. So thank you, everybody, and thanks for joining us. And we look forward to seeing you next week. Okay, bye for now.
Bye.